Hey everybody, it's the Matinee Show, episode 59. 3 new movies, either on streaming service or in the theaters. We did 2 in the theaters and 1 on Netflix this week.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the Netflix one first. This is a little movie called Assimilate.
Yeah.
This is kind of like, I guess this has been on Netflix since maybe last May or June or something like that, and I just now got around to watching it. It's a sci-fi horror, I guess I would call it.
Almost kind of like an old school monster movie.
It was, yeah. It seems like it's been getting like really kind of shitty reviews. It's got like an average of like less than 5, not percent, but less than 5 out of 10. So I didn't know that before I watched it. I just kind of watched it because it was new, and I'm not saying this is like a fantastic movie. But I'm just saying, I don't really know why everyone's shitting on it so much. I mean, it's clearly low budget. I will say from the outset that it is pretty much an uncredited remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yeah.
Except done with, like, more teenager, college-age type characters.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with that story, then this will not be all that surprising because it's very, very similar. You know what I mean? I think they even had, like, some of the same pods and stuff. It's kind of like engendered a little bit differently. It's basically about, there's these 2 guys at the beginning. They're high school seniors or whatever. They're best friends, and they have like a web series, or they're starting a web series, and they're documenting their boring little town, which I think is called Moulton, Missouri. And their whole joke is like nothing exciting ever happens there, but they're documenting like real small town American life or whatever. So while they're doing this web series and they're kind of going around filming everything, and it's not really a found footage movie. It does have aspects of that because some of the some of the stuff is from their footage, but it's not like, I wouldn't call it a found footage movie. So as they're kind of documenting all the people in town who are all like really normal and everything like that, then someone that they know, like one of their neighbors who they all have a crush on, she's like an older, but like a MILF, I guess, that they all have a crush on, and they all like check out her ass when she's like out gardening or whatever. And she gets attacked by something that they don't quite see. They think it's a rat. And it leaves this big, like, cut on her thigh. And then they chase the rat through the woods. And, like, then the town's preacher, like, looks like he puts the rat in a box. And then, like, they get back in the car. And then the preacher starts acting really weird. And then so, like, everyone in town starts acting really weird. And so them and this girl that one guy has a crush on, who notices that her dad is also acting really weird, they kind of have to band together and figure out what's going on. Because, like, the cop doesn't believe them, and, like, some people are getting, assimilated, title drop. But, as I said, it's clearly low budget. The CGI isn't fantastic in some of the parts, but it was actually much better than I was expecting. Even though, because I didn't really know anything about it, like, going in. It's just, other than, like, the couple of sentences they give you on Netflix. So I didn't know that this was going to be like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is essentially what it is. But, once I kind of figured that out and just kind of relaxed and enjoyed it, it was a perfectly fine, enjoyable movie. It's probably not something you'd watch like more than once or, anything like that, or that you'd recommend or that you'd even like remember a few weeks from now. But, for...
There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, if you have 90 minutes to kill and you like kind of like alien pods taking over like a small town and shit like that, and has like a little bit of a twist ending.
Naked people.
Yeah. Naked people. Like, although I'm not sure it's naked people you'd want to see, is it? Well,
it's just a B movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Back in the 80s, it would have been done. It would have been done real corny. It would have been along the lines of something like, I don't know, Halloween 3. That's how it would have come out. It would have come out like that, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Today they can make even a crappy movie look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this looked pretty... I mean, it looked better than, like, a sci-fi original, that's for sure. Like, the CGI looked better than that.
Yeah, I think it's actually kind of above average.
Yeah.
From what's going on. So there's no reason to get mad at it.
Yeah, it's like, that's why I couldn't figure out... It's like, I guess I can figure out why the reviews are kind of, like, middling, or a lot of people hated it and stuff like that, but... It doesn't seem like something that would really, like, inspire that kind of hatred, because it's just, like, a perfectly fine...
just normal movie.
It's just a normal movie. Maybe people's standards are too high nowadays. It's like they have to nitpick every single little thing.
Shit, they saw the shit on Netflix. It's not like, they just paid a subscription.
Yeah.
They're at home. They didn't have to go anywhere.
That's what
to
I mean.
watch
It's like you didn't have to go to the theater and pay like $16 to watch it in IMAX.
It's almost like it's like movie overload nowadays. There's so many movies out there that people are getting real fucking picky. I can understand it on, say, like, a $150 million movie like the new Terminator. But on these low budget movies, they're just entertainment.
Yeah, and as long as they can keep me entertained for their entire runtime, as long as they don't bore me or, or piss me off or anything like that.
You're at home, you got a drink in your hand, you're watching this shit.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck else are you going to be doing?
Yeah, right.
Nothing. Yeah. So, it's like, I know that doesn't sound like I'm really recommending it, but it's like, if this is kind of your kind of thing, if you like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but with younger
90% of that shit on fucking Netflix, 90% of the shit in the theaters is just that.
That's what I mean.
You're just watching it.
And I think that it's been like that forever. It's only very rarely that you go see a movie and you're like, wow, that was fucking great.
Yeah.
Most movies are like, yeah, it was pretty good. That was, I didn't feel like I wasted my time. You know what I mean?
The only thing that's supposed to be mind-blowing really are big tentpole movies. They spend a lot of money on that. You know what I mean? Those are supposed to blow you away. At least visually, Or some kind of a damn art film. That can blow you away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't need a big budget. Like Joker.
Yeah.
No budget. It just passed $1 billion today.
Yeah.
Even that Lighthouse one. That, at least I had a reaction to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and like I said, and we've talked about this before, it's like, I really like when you see a movie that you can tell was just like one or a small group of people's like vision.
Yeah.
And they didn't care if it was going to be popular. They didn't care if like a bunch of people, they just really, really wanted to make it.
Like Eraserhead.
Yeah. And they got all their shit together and made it. That's why I really, really liked The Lighthouse, because it was just so weird. And it's like, he didn't even care like if it was going to be off-putting for some people or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, again, most movies, 85% of movies are ones like this one, where it's just kind of like, it's good enough, it's entertaining, when you watch it, but, you're not going to, remember or call people up and being like, oh, man, you got to see this, it's so rad, and everything it's not like that, but I didn't feel like I wasted my time. It was a perfectly enjoyable
It's not like
movie.
It had bad acting, it wasn't, it wasn't, like something from Ed Wood Productions or anything, It was just
well, those can also be entertaining in their own particular way.
Ed Wood, a lot of Ed Wood movies are just kind of boring to me.
Well,
a lot of driving shots, a lot of walking shots.
I think that happened a lot in the 50s, because, if you see a lot of the movies from the 50s that they did on MST, it's like you can tell that they had, a little pinch of story, and then it would only have been 10 minutes if they filmed that, so they had to pad out another 70
Lots of dudes in suits sitting in offices talking on phones to other dudes in other offices.
Yeah, there's huge, big long conversations, and it's one room that they redressed to look like several other offices. It's let's go over this up just for a change of scenery, even though it's the same room. I feel like a lot of movies in the 50s had that, because it's well, they started out, particularly low-budget ones, you started out with, a great concept and a great poster, and they're like, okay, write a movie around that. Yeah. And it's you can only afford to show the giant spider, for a couple of minutes, because, you didn't have the budget. So it's
grasshoppers on a postcard.
Yeah, it's the rest of the time you just had to show people, sitting around in an office talking about how they were going to solve the problem.
Being official and quoting scientists. The scientists say that...
Or walking around. Yeah. There was a lot of that.
That the heart is nothing but one single big cell. Remember that shit?
Yeah, that was from Amazing Colossal Man.
Or... what the fuck? A heart is not a cell? What the hell?
They thought it was, one big cell.
The scientists have said that.
And I was like, no, what scientist
said
that? It's
shit?
You guys are high. But So, if you have Netflix and, like I said, you kind of B-movie sci-fi type stuff and you have 90 minutes to kill, then you could certainly do worse than watching Assimilate. So go check it out. There she goes again.
So you guys are going to tear it up, huh? Pokey.
All right, the second movie we saw this week, we finally got around to seeing it because it's been out a couple weeks, hasn't it? Terminator Dark Fate.
Yeah.
So this one, I hadn't read really any reviews of it or anything like that. I heard that it wasn't doing, it's made a lot of money, but it hasn't made as much as they expected it to, and it hasn't, I guess it hasn't made its production and marketing budget back. So they were going to do a whole new trilogy and stuff, but I guess they're not going to do that now because it, it was disappointing box office. So, going into it with that, and going into it with, now I have to say, I love the first Terminator. Terminator 2, I loved it at the time, but rewatching it recently, I still like it, except for Edward Furlong is annoying as fuck, and he threatens to like drag the whole movie down for me.
There's a lot of problems in Terminator 2 that a lot of people don't want to see because they just have a lot of nostalgia for that movie. I liked parts of of Terminator 2.
I did too. I liked everything except for that kid.
But there were problems with the movie.
Yeah.
What makes Terminator is Arnold Schwarzenegger as a villain, and that only happened in T1.
Yeah, because he didn't really like playing villains, did he?
There was something in his contracts that he wasn't going to do it anymore after that.
Yeah. He makes such a good villain, though. It's like
villains end up get killed, and then just like what they said in that Hollywood movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that you see the guy get killed over and over again, and then all of a sudden you think he's a pussy.
Yeah.
That eventually happens. So, Terminator 1. The Terminator story is best told in Terminator 1.
Well, yeah, I don't think anyone would.
You don't need Terminator 2. Terminator 2... We're not talking about Terminator 2 right now.
Well, no,
I don't want to get into the leather daddy aspects and a little boy in the back of the motorcycle type thing. There's a lot of fucking kind of cringy shit in fucking T2.
What I was going to say was that I'm kind of coming at it with... The first one was, like, awesome, obviously.
Yeah.
The second one, like, I liked it at the time, and I like a lot of things about it, but, there's some stuff that I don't like about it in hindsight. I didn't see... Let's see. I didn't see 3, I don't think. Which was the one with Christian Bale in it? Was that Salvation?
It was like 4 or 5.
That was 4?
I don't know.
I saw that one.
I have them all, and I get
that one was okay. But I didn't see Terminator Genesis or anything like that. Yeah. So I'm not like maybe not as invested in the Terminator thing. Like I kind of wanted to see it, kind of not. Like I was kind of ambivalent about seeing it. I will say that as much as people seem to be complaining about it, I liked this one better than Salvation.
Yeah.
And I liked some of it. I liked aspects of it more than the second one.
Yeah. It's not a bad movie.
It's a very good action movie. The action set pieces are very good. It's long, but it moves along at a good clip. Like you never get bored or anything. You have
to look at this movie as a standalone, though. It's almost like not a Terminator movie. To me, the only Terminator movie is Terminator 1.
Yeah.
It's a low-budget, dark, horror, sci-fi action movie. Almost kind of like Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Except it's, with Jason. Except it's a robot.
Yeah.
And it's Arnold. And it's Arnold being fucking intimidating. And that's really what made that movie. It's a low-budget movie. You don't see much about the future. You're just on a blue filter, you know what I mean? And then some robots and tanks. And really, the less you talk about the future and the more you keep that a mystery, the more power the Terminator has. When you start having Skynet talking, and it just sucks all the mystery out of it.
We were talking about that a little bit more. It's like sometimes that's why, and it's like, yes, I understand why. Like if a movie is successful, yes, they want more of that, please. So there's they just want to keep making sequels. But the problem is, it's like they're never going to be as good because you have to, kind of demystify a lot of the mythology about, and that's what made the first movie so good.
Is that it was
and
mysterious.
You just have to like keep elaborating and try to do something different every time, and you keep getting diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened in this situation. Even though, like I said, I like this one probably the best of all the other sequels that I've seen. I can understand why some people were mad, and I'm not gonna. I mean, I know it's been out a couple weeks, but I don't want to like spoil all the big plot points. Even though one of them happens like in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, the one that seems to be pissing everyone off the most. But I can understand why they did that, just because they didn't want to do the same shit. I mean, this is the 6th Terminator movie.
It's all creative decisions, but when you start doing all these creative decisions to not make it like the other Terminator movies, eventually you don't have a Terminator movie anymore. It's a Terminator-themed standalone action movie. And to me, that's what this seems like.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were to give me $150 million and say, make a Terminator movie, all right, I'd have gone, well, fuck. Instead of a continuation, I just would have thrown everything away and redone Terminator 1.
Yeah.
To a higher standard with somebody, say, like The Rock as the Terminator.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe added a little bit to it to where you could make another Terminator after that. Maybe like 2 more. If they want trilogies, But the thing is that what made Terminator great was such a simple premise.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to make 3 movies out of that.
And especially once you get into when your whole franchise is based around time travel.
Oh, yeah.
Which means, it almost seems like I can understand from a writer's point of view, like you're like, oh, I can do anything because we can just go back in time and fuck this and say it's an alternate timeline and all this other kind of shit. But I feel like you should probably refrain from doing that because you're just you're elaborating so much that like the shit that there's no continuity or anything like that. Because when you have time travel, like I said, you can essentially do anything because you can just say that, oh, well, somebody went back and monkeyed with this and now it's different. You know what I mean?
What made Terminator great is that it was a movie of its time. You're talking about the 80s, the early part of the 80s, and they're imagining a robot from the future from something. The internet, Skynet, is the fucking internet. It's exactly what they were talking about. It's where they got the idea. Because in those days, the internet was just something the military was talking about.
Yeah.
At the time they made that story, they had no idea that everybody would have the internet on their phone, and the phone would be in their back pocket. And the phone's also the TV and the computer and the movies. Yeah. And the rest of the world. That concept was just so far ahead of us back then. You know, you couldn't have done it.
Yeah.
So the whole premise of the Terminator really is a child of the 80s. If you start doing it now and putting it into modern term, it doesn't make any sense, because if something from the future comes back here, it's not going to be humanoid robots. It's going to be something like nanites that fly around like dust and you breathe them in, they kill you. It's not going to be.
You would think that would be a more.
It'd
likely
be something super efficient and high tech that wouldn't be scary, wouldn't look good on film. So for me, Terminator always has to be happening in the 80s.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of a good point, because it's like, why the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, why would like a super intelligent AI from the future, like why would they go to all the trouble of building all these robots?
Yeah, they
would
to
kill people and stuff like that. But like I said, back then we didn't know like about nanotechnology and all this other kind of stuff, which would obviously be much easier.
Super viruses. They would have just put a virus in there.
Yeah, it seems like much easier.
And just wipe us out.
But I guess you can say that about any like sci-fi.
sprayed down some genetically engineered chemicals that only kill humans. You know what I mean? You put them up in satellites and it sprays it down and kills everybody on the planet. There's a bunch of different ways. You don't need humanoid robots to hunt out humans.
That's what I mean. It's like just think like a supervillain.
This is the idea of the 80s, but it's a dumb idea by today's standards.
Well, now that we know what we know now, it's like,
do. Right.
And I think maybe that might be part of the reason why most of the subsequent Terminator movies have been less and less successful. It's just because as we're getting closer to where that technology is possible,
right? You
know, the kind of the cracks in the premise begin to become a lot more.
Yeah, and then they're talking about, well, the Earth was destroyed by a nuclear explosion too. That happened. Man, the weapon of mass destruction of the future is basically just swarms of miniature drones the size of pennies that land on your head and blow up.
Yeah.
And they look for people based on what they look like.
Yeah.
Facial recognition, and they're controlled by a damn AI program. That would run those damn humanoid Terminators into the ground.
Yeah.
A system like that. And we're almost able, we can basically do that now.
Yeah.
We could do that now.
I mean, technology for that. I'm going to say, going back to Terminator Dark Fate, like I said, they had high hopes for this because they got Arnold back, they got Linda Hamilton back, they got James Cameron back. They have the dude that Tim Miller, who directed Deadpool, he was the one directing it. So, and he got, James Cameron went and got a lot of input from novelists and stuff like that. He's like, what would you do? It's like, we want to do this, that, and the other thing. And what he ended up doing, and I can see why he did this, it's like he almost went back to the original premise, because this has something to do with a woman who, will do something in the future. A horrible Terminator is sent back to kill her, and another, in this case, she's not a Terminator, she's like an augmented human being, comes back to protect her, and they kind of meet up with, Sarah Connor, and then they have to fight against this Terminator, which can't be destroyed, and, they kind of hook up with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, who was a Terminator, and then there's like an alternate timeline. Like I said, I don't want to spoil that. So they're kind of just like all fighting against that. So it's kind of like a similar plot to the first one, but in a way that they have to like acknowledge what came before, but also kind of like do something else with it. So it's kind of like they had a thankless task, and I can see what they were trying to do with it. Like I said,
the tone was kind of across the board too, because you're supposed to take this thing seriously in some areas, In other areas, it's kind of lighthearted comedy. They
Yeah.
do weird shit with Duncan, with Carl the Terminator. The new was leader of the resistance is like a what? A 4'11", 4'11" tall girl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She just, and I thought the idea of John Connor being the leader of the rebellion was ridiculous because he had no real leadership qualities. You know.
Well, I think and that was like a problem. With
that was
actor.
a big problem with Terminator 2. You know, you look at this kid, you go like, he's the leader of the rebellion.
It's like, oh, we're
that
doomed.
fucker. You know, the one grabbing that man around his waist on the back of the damn leather daddy motorcycle, going. He's the leader of the Terminator with his floppy hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend look just like that boy. Same haircut and everything. Yeah.
Interesting.
Weird. Yeah.
The thing I didn't like about his character was that movie, I had forgotten, it's so painfully 90s. I mean, just all the slang that he was using and like the attitude.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it was like those horrible like Disney Channel shows like from back in the 90s where all the teenagers were like, or all the preteens were all like wisecracking. And it's like, ugh. I don't miss that.
No.
But yeah, so this movie altogether, like I said, I didn't have any expectations for it really going in, other than I knew it hadn't been doing as well as they expected, and I knew a lot of people had been bitching about it. But that said, like I said, it was a perfectly enjoyable movie. Like, it was totally fine.
It'd have been a lot better if I was drunk.
Yeah, I wasn't bored at any point. I felt like the humor fell a little flat.
Yeah.
Some of the CGI was a little ropey.
Yeah.
But the action set pieces were generally good. The acting was generally pretty good. The girl that played Grace, the augmented human, she was really good.
Yeah, what's funny is that she had that damn Dylan Roof haircut. I always looked like Dylan Roof, like the white supremacist haircut and shit.
White supremacist haircut.
Yeah, I thought...
She's going to be in that new Turn of the Screw. Adaptation of January.
I thought that character was going to be ridiculous, but actually she was the best character in the movie, actually.
Yeah, she probably was.
She's in a way better than Carl the Terminator.
Yeah.
And so
if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking
about. It's just...
I liked seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger back in it again. I liked him being a Terminator again, but... I don't know, like, I'm kind of ambivalent about that.
That was the watered-down Terminator.
It almost seems like they wanted him to be, like, he's a serious character, but he got, like, all the comic relief lines.
Yeah.
And some of them were funny, but then, like, some of it I was kind of like, well, they probably could have left that out.
Yeah, and they're like, he's got a personal life, and he hangs drapes, and he stays... It's kind of funny, but it's also... They basically emasculated the fucking...
Do you know why they made him, like, a drapery guy? It's because, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger in real life is, like, super into interior decorating.
It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me.
So they thought that would be a funny thing to add to it, that it's like he's a draper.
Well, he's kind of a creative guy.
Yeah.
You know.
So I thought that was kind of funny. I didn't know that.
But, no, I just... Terminator is in the same... is having the same trouble as Predator. Okay.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do with that. And like you said, something like that, particularly sci-fi.
Right.
You know, as we get closer, like I said, to the actual technology or to like that. And I feel like it's not as special, it's not as cool. And you have to like lose a lot of the mystery the more you explain the story, the more you expand the mythology.
When you're talking about Predator, man, it's Predator 1. That's a damn masterpiece. The acting, just the tone of the movie, the score, the way it's shot, that's fucking Predator. And it's a very simple, elemental story that had a lot of deep underlying messages about there's always a bigger fish. It's very warrior culture related, and it's, you know, soldiers that wrote that script that got guys to make that movie.
Yeah.
When you start expanding it and moving it outside of the jungle, it starts to suffer, because what made the Predator story so good was the simplicity and the purity of it. Now, that one, Predators, where they go to the hunting planet, that was pretty close to Predator. I liked that one.
I actually liked that one. That was easily the best of all the sequels.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, some people, the guy that the main character of the story, some people didn't like. He was doing the Batman voice. I'm forgiving of all that kind of shit. Really,
that was Adrian Brody though. I love Adrian Brody.
I thought everybody did a good job, and I've watched that movie multiple times, and it stands up.
Yeah,
and really for me, Predator and Predators are the main movies.
The rest of them are just myths.
The rest of them are just
Which, like I said, it's the same thing with Terminator. I was going to say it's the same thing with fucking Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
First one, fantastic. Second one, terrible.
Yeah.
Third one, pretty good.
Yeah.
Rest of them, not so good.
And
although Wes Craven's New Nightmare is actually pretty decent.
But you know what? Alien versus Predator 1 and 2, a lot of people bag on those movies. I liked them.
First one, I saw the first one in the theater, and I remember liking it okay.
One with the pyramid underneath the ground.
Yeah.
And then
I don't remember a lot about it, but I remember liking it.
They were just... It's because they didn't explain much, which that's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
They just showed a new situation, and you know what I mean? They showed a little bit of the home worlds, and it was just enough to keep the mystery going. You know what I mean? And even Alien vs. Predator 2, which is super low budget, I had fun with it. It was dark, you couldn't see much, but hey, that was to hide the fact that the effects were shitty. But hey, we got another movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know. I don't think there's going to be too many more Terminators.
Well, I don't think, like I said, they were thinking about doing another trilogy, but I don't think they've... At this point, since this one was disappointing, so they didn't do...
You're just not going to be able to take this story anywhere.
Uh-oh.
You're just not going to be able to take this story anywhere
I think it's
without shooting itself in the dick, and that's what this will do.
Yeah. And like I said, that happens with any long-standing franchise. It's like there's only so many directions you can go and still... come up with something fresh and still have elements of stuff that people liked from the beginning.
They've made 5 sequels,
and
they've all kind of gone in directions that were a little bit wonky.
Yeah.
T2 was the least wonky.
Yeah.
But the other ones were pretty kind of wonky.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably...
This
obviously...
the end, I think.
Obviously the first Terminator is the best one. The second one's the second best one. This one's probably the third best one. And then Salvation is probably the fourth one, and then the other two. I don't even remember.
Yeah, I don't even bother with that shit, though. I just watch fucking T1, Predator 1, Predator 3, you know what I mean? Alien versus Predator. Just keep it fucking basic. But really, Predator 1 and T1, they're masterpieces. Yeah. Just leave it at that.
And like I said, I don't think anyone would argue with you. It's because that's where the concept came from.
The whole with those two stories,
they're very self-contained.
The less you know, the better. The less you know, the more...
You don't need more of that.
You don't need more. The less you know, the more you will enjoy those stories.
Yes, less is more.
Less is more.
That's the lesson. Okay, and the final movie that we saw in the theaters this week was the new release, Ford v. Ferrari.
Excellent movie.
This is going to be... We should probably, at the end of the year, we should each do our top 10. This is easily going to be in my top 10 movies this year. Maybe even top 5 movies of this year. This is easily one of my favorite movies of this year so far.
Man, this it's a man's story. It's a very male-driven story, but this is how it happened.
Yeah.
You know, you had Carroll Shelby. You had fucking Lee Iacocca. You had Henry Ford Jr. in this. Yeah, what was his name? Mike, the race car driver, I forgot his name.
Yeah. Shit, now I can't remember either.
Shit, he died right. He died.
Ken Miles.
Ken Miles. That's right. Ken Miles died right after winning Le Mans, but so
I don't. Should you spoil that?
No, everybody knows.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's part of it. So he was a great race car driver, but it just. All right. Well, how do we actually review this one? It's a historical documentary, a tale about, I guess you could say, almost kind of like brotherhood. These guys conducting corporate warfare in the form of damn racing.
Yeah.
All right, and Ford tried to buy Ferrari, and Ferrari said no, and Ferrari insulted Henry Ford Jr., and it pissed Henry Ford Jr. off so bad that he wanted to race against Ferrari and defeat Enzo Ferrari
at Le
Mans.
Like the most famous car race in the world.
Yeah. And
because Ferrari always won. They had won like the 4 previous years. This movie's set in 1966, in case you didn't know.
Yeah. And in other markets, it's called Le Mans
66. Yeah. Because they figured Americans wouldn't know what that was.
Le Mans is, right? Yeah.
That's really funny. So here it's called Ford versus Ferrari.
Yeah. So Lee Iacocca, who's played by the same guy who played by the Punisher. What's that actor?
John Bernthal, yeah.
John Bernthal.
And Shane on Walking Dead.
Yeah, and Shane on The Walking Dead. He plays Lee Iacocca.
He was great in this. He doesn't have like a huge amount of screen time.
No, he's fucking fantastic.
He's really, really good in this. Everybody is really, really good in this.
Yeah, and I lived a few years, in Michigan, going during my high school period, and still got friends in the Michigan, Detroit auto world, or what's left of it. And friends that worked for Ford too, ended up being Ford executives, and it's just fucking funny seeing, the Shane being portrayed as Lee Iacocca. But Lee Iacocca was a cool dude, and he did save Ford on many occasions later on. But this is kind of like the earlier part of Lee Iacocca's career with Ford, and he really backed Shelby and shit. What's the guy's name again?
Ken Miles.
Ken Miles, yeah. And he backs Miles and Shelby, and they make this damn fucking car,
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing
car.
about this movie, it's like, yeah, it's called Ford versus Ferrari, and that's kind of like, the backdrop of the story, like Ford trying to build a race car that will beat Ferrari at Le Mans. But in between all of that, this is really a story about these two guys' friendship, and also about their, kind of them like working toward their dream of building the fastest car in the world.
Yeah.
In the 1960s. You know what I mean? It's because these two guys, played by Matt Damon and Christian Bale, are like car guys, and this is their thing, and they're super, super passionate about it. So it's about their friendship. It's also about like the battles that they kind of have to go through with like Ford corporate suits who all they want is like to win. They don't really care about, they don't like Ken Miles because he's difficult, and it's like they don't really want him driving the car, even though Carroll Shelby is like, oh, he's the best guy.
Yeah.
And all this other, because he has kind of like this weird like spiritual thing where he knows like everything about cars and how to drive them and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
they hired this British racing team to build the Ford GT40, which was it's a famous race car. This is in the 60s. Race cars were still pretty. They looked good. They don't look like shit like they do now. To me, they look ridiculous, but they still looked like fucking Chevy Cobras, and that's what they looked like, that, or they looked like something you could actually own, looked like something you could drive on the street.
Yeah.
But and they show the movie kind of reminds me of one of those astronaut movies.
Yeah.
Kind of like The Right Stuff.
It is very much like it's very much like, you remember back in the old days when they used to have like these kind of like historical dramas, but like a big budget with big stars and stuff. They don't really do that much anymore, like, because now everything is like has to be a franchise or it's comic books or whatever. So you don't see a lot of movies like this nowadays. So it's, to me, it's like amazing that it got made. I mean, this costs like quite a bit of money to make. I think this cost like $100 million to make.
It's a must see. I mean, you got to see it.
And it's a great fucking movie. It's great.
Got to see it.
It's
up there, kind of like with that. Remember that Apollo 11 documentary? With that. It
reminded me of that.
Yeah, tonally, it felt like that. You could watch these side by side, and they're showing California in the '60s. It also kind of felt a little bit like Quentin Tarantino's Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Did you notice that too?
Yeah.
Kind of had that because it's taking place in that same time period. And kind of the way it looks and feels is kind of like that.
It looks like, I'm not sure if it was shot on actual film, but it looked like it was. You know what I mean? It looked like it was shot like on older film stock. You know what I'm saying? Like, not in the sense that it looks shitty, because it's beautiful looking. The cinematography is beautiful. The racing scenes and stuff. And this is coming from someone who's like, I'm from Daytona, so I kind of know about NASCAR and shit like that, like just through osmosis, because my dad was like super into it. But I don't know a lot about car racing in general. But it doesn't matter. Like, all of the racing scenes in this are just like filmed awesome. They are edited awesome, and they are just like really, really tense, and like, you'll just be like on the edge of your seat, like like through these whole races and stuff like that. And then there's not only that, but just all the fucking character stuff in this is so great. Like, all the stuff with Matt Damon and Christian Bale, like their friendship, the stuff with Christian Bale and the kid that plays his son, like the father-son stuff is like really great. All the shit, like where they're fighting with the corporate guys and everything. It's just, it's so, so good. And like all them and like interacting with their team and trying to figure out the best way to do this, that, and the other thing. Yeah. And it's just like so fucking good.
All the tech heads that are fucking, and the guys that turn all the wrenches that are fucking making these cars happen, and and they're trying to figure out what's going to happen with the gearbox, and it's cool.
It's like an artistic inspiration kind of movie. It doesn't matter. It's like if you don't know anything about cars or anything like that, everybody has something like that they can like relate to.
And then they get into the aspects between Ken Miles and his wife.
Yeah.
And the money problems that they had, and that he was risking his life, you know what I mean? And they had a kid, and it's a cool flick.
It's an amazing, amazing movie. And it's funny because when I never think about it because Christian Bale is in so many movies and he usually plays an American. So they actually let him, because the real Ken Miles was actually from Birmingham, England. Mm-hmm. And Christian Bale is actually Welsh, and I always forget that.
Yeah.
So it's like, so he does actually have a British accent. He doesn't do a Welsh accent. He actually does a Birmingham accent in this movie. But I always keep forgetting that's like, that an American isn't really how he talks, because he's actually not an American. You know what's interesting, and I didn't know this until I read the Wikipedia page, they've been trying to get this movie made for like ages, because I guess a book about it came out, like about this whole... I'm not sure how historically accurate it is. I read like all the Wikipedia page
it's pretty close
of Ken Miles and stuff. It's like, I'm sure some stuff was dramatized, but it's pretty close to what actually happened.
It's a movie, and certain things took longer to do than others, and there was details that had to be left out during the development of all the development of these cars. The GT40 is actually, it's funny about the GT40 is it was a Ford, but in a way it was a British car. If you looked at it, it looked like a British race car, and it was made by mostly British guys.
Yeah. And
I think it might have been, I think the prototypes was made in England, actually.
Yeah.
Because Ford had a lot of money. Ford could just buy.
Yeah.
They could just, and, they bought Carroll Shelby, basically. They needed him on the team. And
because he was like the best race car. He built. He actually had won Le Mans also when he was a driver, but he had to retire from driving because he had heart condition.
He had heart condition. Right.
Yeah, so he actually went into like building race cars.
Yeah, and most of the movie is about how Shelby was really rooting for Miles to keep Miles, because he knew that Miles was the guy that you needed behind the wheel. Yeah, and some of the corporate kiss asses in Ford were trying to get rid of Miles
because he wasn't really a team player.
Well, he wasn't a team player, and he was kind of chavvy, and they were afraid he was going to say something
fucked up, like
say something fucked up to the media, or because he would speak what was on his mind. He was the kind of guy that would say, "Oh, fuck Ford."
Yeah,
he was actually that kind of guy. Because he was just he only cared about racing. But I really loved the story. I thought the fucking movie was a masterpiece. This is how you tell a story like this. All the acting was great. The casting for the fucking thing was spot on.
I was just going to mention,
casting was spot on.
I didn't know until, but like I said, they've been trying to get this movie made for like a really long time. If I didn't mention it, James Mangold directed this. He most recently did Logan, which also got like really, really huge accolades. And he's done like Girl Interrupted, and he did some other really cool shit too. But as long as this has been trying to get made and like kind of going from hand to hand and director to director, you know who they initially wanted to play those two parts was fucking Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. I don't think that would have worked.
Back in the day. Like, when were you talking about?
Well, only like a few years ago. Well, not like ages ago.
Well,
like,
in real life,
maybe the last like 4 or 5 years.
I think Miles was about 45, 46 when he was doing Le Mans. 47
he was, yeah.
So
mid to late 40s.
They'd have to be around that age during that time. They could do it. Cruise was going to play who?
I'm not sure which one was going to play which one.
I guess he was going to probably play Carroll Shelby.
Maybe. He seems more like that than the Ken Miles character. Right. I don't know if it would have worked, though, because the thing about Christian Bale and about Matt Damon is that they're humongous stars, but
they're not typecast, though.
They're not typecast, and when they're in a movie, you can still forget that it's them. Because like when I was watching Christian Bale, I didn't think like, oh, there's Christian Bale. I was thinking, oh, it's Ken Miles. So he really like disappears into roles.
When Tom's in a movie, that's fucking Tom.
That's what I mean. And that's what I'm saying.
Tom plays himself.
That's what I mean. And that's the problem that I would have... Brad Pitt probably would have been fine. Yeah. But I could see Brad Pitt more playing Ken Miles. He probably could have pulled that off. Yeah. But I don't think I would have liked Tom Cruise as the Matt Damon character. I just don't think it would have worked. Because like you said, you would have been the whole time, you'd been like, oh, it's Tom Cruise.
There's Tom.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, this blows Days of Thunder out of the fucking water, though. Remember the Days of Thunder film that fucking Tom did?
I did not like that movie.
Yeah. This is one of the best race car movies I've seen.
And like I said, you don't even really need to know anything about cars or car racing or anything like that. No. It's just the characters are so great. The story is really riveting.
Yeah.
You really give a shit about the characters, about what happens to them. You want them to succeed. You're like rooting for them and stuff.
Yeah.
So
The racing scenes are almost like something out of Mad Max. They don't show you.
they're
anything,
amazing.
They don't show you anything boring. They're showing you just the wrecks and certain fucking turns that guys had problems on, and dude couldn't shut the door during the race, all kinds of stuff.
And it makes you feel like you're in the race car,
Yeah.
like some of the times, especially if you see it like on a really big screen.
Right.
This is something that needs to be seen on a big screen, I feel like. Just because the editing and the car racing scenes are so overwhelming. Also, the sound design is really great.
It's a long movie, but it doesn't feel long.
It's 2 hours and 32 minutes, but I was not bored for a single second.
Right.
I just thought this was like...
I put this one up there with, like I said, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I put it Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I put it up there with that. I put it up there with Apollo 11.
Yeah, that documentary.
That documentary with the fucking space shot. I put it up there with The Right Stuff. Probably better than The Right Stuff. Kind of felt like it.
Yeah, I liked this better than The Right Stuff. But they are very similar. Like,
you know what I'm
very
talking
similar
about.
tone. Yeah.
It feels like a movie of the 60s, actually.
It does. That's what I was going to say. It's just, you don't see like a lot of movies made like this anymore.
No, it's gritty. It's gritty.
But, where you just have these big... Like, this is a big budget movie, but with, like, all these big stars and stuff, but it tells, like, kind of maybe a story that a lot of people... I'm not going to say a lot of people can't relate to, because everybody can relate to this story in broad strokes, but...
It's a male-dominated cast.
It is,
They're all male characters. These are all manly men doing manly things, among other manly men, to achieve a manly purpose. You know what I'm talking about? But it's universal struggles.
Yeah, it's something everybody can understand. Like me being like an artistic person, I can understand like knowing the technical way of doing something and knowing the artistic way of doing something, and having like people that don't know anything about that, like money people or whatever, like trying to tell you to do this and that, and that shit's fucked up. Yeah. So everybody can relate to
the whole corporate angle is spot on.
Yeah, everybody can relate to that.
They called Ford. That's the way Ford was.
Yeah.
I have friends who are Ford executives, friends whose dads were Ford executives. That's the way they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I said, this is, even if you don't know anything about car racing or anything, this is a very relatable story for everybody. And the characters are so good that you get really, really invested in their fates and stuff. So, definitely, and I said, I can't see this not being in my top movies of the year, because this was one of my favorite movies that we saw in the theater this year.
Definitely top 10.
Easily. Yeah.
Definitely top 10.
So definitely recommended, and check it out on the big screen, because
it was as good as Dolomite.
Yeah.
And Dolomite was pretty cool. Totally different kind of movie. Totally different. But I'd put this up there with Dolomite.
I'm digging all these kind of like retro, like all these movies like
take
set
us
back
back
in
to
the
the
60s
future.
and
Let's
70s.
go back to the past.
You know what I mean?
Let's go back to
I'm kind of digging it.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I can see why they do it with horror movies and stuff, because it's like easier to make a horror movie when nobody has cell phones and stuff.
and if you guys haven't heard me recommend it or heard us recommend it before, go on Netflix, go watch Dolomite Is My Name.
Yeah. We reviewed it a week or two ago.
Eddie Murphy and Wesley Snipes make a huge comeback in that flick.
Yeah.
And that movie's fucking hilarious.
But yeah, so we've seen some like really good movies like recently.
I can't wait for Coming to America Part 2.
Yeah.
They're both going to be in it, and they said it's going to be great.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so definitely Ford v Ferrari, or if it's called Le Mans 66, whatever country you were in, definitely go see this shit on the big screen. It's amazing, and hopefully it gets some Oscar nods when that point comes around.
It'll win.
I think it'll definitely at least get nominated for sure.
I think it'll win some stuff.
Yeah, I think it probably will too.